Well, we're going to see. I mean, we're going to see. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. With me, it's very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. We don't want to be tough on Iran. We don't want to be tough on anybody, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
US President Donald Trump signed a critical memorandum on Tuesday that escalates the United States' stance against Iran. This reflects his administration's continued commitment to ensuring national security by preventing the Islamic Republic of Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons and curbing its involvement in global terrorism. The memo, titled Imposing Maximum Pressure on Iran, denying Iran all paths to a nuclear weapon and countering Iran's malign influence, represents a strategic framework aimed at disrupting Iran's military and terrorist activities while isolating the regime economically and diplomatically.
So you say Iran is so weak. I appreciate you saying that. They're not weak. They're very strong right now, and we're not going to allow them to have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. You know, I signed a very strong proclamation. Iran was in big trouble when I left. They were broke. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have any money for Hezbollah. You had no problem. October 7th could have never happened. When I left, October 7th could have never happened. And frankly, Russia and Ukraine, as I said, could never have happened. They became very strong very fast. They sold massive amounts of oil to China and everybody else who would not buy the oil when I was president, because we said, don't buy the oil. And they became very rich very quickly. But they're not weak. They're not weak. They're strong. Doesn't mean they won't be weak. But you know what? We just don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear weapon.
The memo highlighted the US's central policy priority, denying Iran the ability to develop nuclear weapons. The Trump administration has repeatedly expressed concerns over Iran's nuclear ambitions, citing Tehran's disregard for its commitments under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, that is the NPT. The US has accused Iran of concealing undeclared nuclear sites and materials, violating its comprehensive safeguards agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency. The administration's memo warns that Iran's pursuit of nuclear-capable missiles and its continued nuclear enrichment activities pose a serious threat to global security and particularly the safety of the United States and its allies.
They cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. I'm not putting restrictions. They cannot have one thing. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if I think that they will have a nuclear weapon, despite what I just said, I think that's going to be very unfortunate for them. If, on the other hand, they can convince us that they won't, and I hope they can, it's very easy to do. It's actually very easy to do. I think they're going to have an unbelievable future.
And bring peace. We also see eye to eye on Iran. That's the same Iran that tried to kill us both. They tried to kill you, Mr. President. They tried through their proxies to kill me. We're both committed to rolling back Iran's aggression in the region and ensuring that Iran never develops a nuclear weapon.
One of the key components of the policy outlined in the memo is the continued and strengthened application of economic sanctions. The U.S. Treasury Secretary has been directed to enforce existing sanctions against Iran and any entities engaged in violating Iran-related sanctions. This includes ensuring that no financial or economic relief reaches the Iranian regime or its proxies, particularly groups linked to terrorism. The memo directs the Treasury to review any existing licenses or exemptions that may provide economic relief to Iran and adjust or eliminate them as necessary.
So this is one that I'm torn about. Everybody wants me to sign it. I'll do that. It's very tough on Iran. It's what we had before. We would have never had the problem. You would have never had October 7th. We would have never had the problem had the election gone a different way, which it should have. The Iran situation, hopefully, I'm going to sign it, but hopefully we're not going to have to use it very much. We will see whether or not we can arrange or work out a deal with Iran and everybody can live together, and maybe that's possible and maybe it's not possible. So I'm signing this and I'm unhappy to do it, but I really have not so much choice because we have to be strong and firm, and I hope that it's not going to have to be used in any great measure at all.
So what kind of deal would you be prepared prepared to.
Well,
make
we're going to
the
see. I mean, we're going to see. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. With me, it's very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. We don't want to be tough on Iran. We don't want to be tough on anybody, but they just can't have a nuclear weapon.
Do you want to block the sale of Iranian oil to other nations?
Well, we have the right to do that, and that's what I did before. And they had no money. They wouldn't have had the money for Hamas or Hezbollah and anybody else. It could have been solved. This thing, if things went the way they should have, this would have been over long ago.
It's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani.
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left. And they shouldn't be able to do it. And Biden should have said that, but he never did. I don't know why. Lack of intelligence, perhaps.
The US State Department, under this memo, has also been directed to lead an aggressive diplomatic campaign to isolate Iran on the global stage. This includes pushing for a complete cessation of Iranian oil exports, particularly to countries like China, which have been major importers of Iranian crude oil despite US sanctions.
Today, I also took action to restore a maximum pressure policy on the Iranian regime, and we will once again enforce the most aggressive possible sanctions, drive Iranian oil exports to zero, and diminish the regime's capacity to fund terror throughout the region and throughout the world. We had no threat when I left office. Iran was not able to sell oil. Nobody was buying oil because I said, don't buy it. If you buy it, you're not doing any business with the United States. And Hamas was not being funded. Hezbollah was not being funded. Nobody was being funded.
In addition to targeting Iran's financial sources, the US will work diplomatically to isolate Iran in international organizations, ensuring that the country faces political and diplomatic pressure. The US Permanent Representative to the United Nations has been instructed to coordinate with key allies to snap back international sanctions on Iran and hold the regime accountable for its violations of the NPT. The US will also continue to press for accountability for Iran's actions, including holding Tehran responsible for its support of terrorist organizations such as Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis. The memo specifically addresses the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, that is the IRGC, which the US has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. The IRGC has been instrumental in carrying out Iran's regional military operations and supporting numerous militant groups across the Middle East. Trump aims to disrupt and degrade the IRGC's operations by targeting its financial networks, denying its access to resources, and taking actions to limit its ability to procure arms and military technology. Trump will also work to neutralize Iran's proxy forces, which operate in countries like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. These groups are accused by US of destabilizing regions, committing acts of terrorism, and directly threatening US personnel and interests abroad. While the new US policy on Iran targets the Iranian government, Donald Trump also expressed support for the people of Iran and said that a deal with Iran can also be negotiated.